Welcome back to Chapter 2 of our Excel Mastery series, where we're helping you go from confused to confident. In this episode, titled Essential Formulas, VLOOKUP, IF, and the Functions That Matter, we'll explore the ins and outs of using VLOOKUP and IF functions, so you can tackle those data challenges with ease. Let's dive in! About half the messy spreadsheets people send to consultants could be fixed with just two ideas. Find this, and if this, then that. A sales report, a budget, a hiring plan. Very different files, all secretly powered by the same tiny formulas you probably underuse. VLOOKUP is the most popular function in Excel, and the most misused. That's from Microsoft's own support data, and it shows up in a very specific way. People think the formula is broken when it's actually doing exactly what they accidentally asked for. Around 15% of lookup errors trace back to a single default setting, approximate match left on when you needed an exact one. So in this episode, we're not just learning formulas, we're debugging how you think about them. We'll look at why VLOOKUP and IF sit at the center of real-world models, pricing tables that update across thousands of SKUs, headcount plans that shift when one assumption changes, finance models where a single mistyped range quietly corrupts a quarter's forecast. By the end, you'll see how these basic functions turn into a control panel for your workbook, and why mastering them is the shortest path to everything more advanced. Here's the twist. Most advanced Excel work is just bigger, better organized versions of the same tiny decisions you already make on a napkin. You match a number from one place to another, you decide which rule applies, and you repeat, only at scale. In a small business, that might mean auto-assigning tax rates by region. In operations, routing orders to the right warehouse. In HR, mapping job levels to salary bands without touching every row. These aren't exotic use cases. They're everyday questions turning into repeatable logic instead of one-off edits. Ever notice how the same few formulas keep showing up in every serious workbook you open from other teams? That's not an accident. In Microsoft's own telemetry, just a handful of functions do most of the heavy lifting in real-world models, and VLOOKUP and IF sit right in the middle of that core. What changes as you get more advanced isn't that you learn 200 new functions, it's that you start combining a small set in smarter ways. Think about three families working together. 1. Lookup functions. Classic VLOOKUP. Power pair index match. New standard XLOOKUP. Power user filter. The big leap here is flexibility. VLOOKUP only looks to the right and locks you into a fixed column number. Index match and XLOOKUP let you pull from any column, left or right, lock the column by name with match, so adding a new column doesn't silently break everything. Switch between get the first match and get all matches with filter. On very large sheets, that flexibility is not just pleasant. It can be the difference between a model that recalculates in seconds and one that grinds for minutes. 2. Logic functions. Workhorse, if. Cleaner branching, ifs. Multi-outcome switching, switch. Safe evaluation, if error, if NA. Instead of nesting dozen-level ifs, the modern pattern is use if or ifs only to choose between lookup results, not to hard-code business rules into a maze. For example, a forecasting model at a retail chain might use XLOOKUP to grab base assumptions. Wrap that in if error so missing data is flagged cleanly, not hidden. Use a single ifs to choose which assumption set applies by scenario. 3. Dynamic ranges and filtering. Once you start using filter, something interesting happens. Many of the I need another helper column problems simply vanish. Instead of manually copying subsets of data, you define the rule once and let Excel keep the extract up to date as the source changes. Modern teams chain these pieces. Logic picks the rule, lookup finds the number, dynamic functions adjust the range. A logistics team, for instance, might route orders by region with one formula that checks priority, looks up the correct warehouse, and spills a live list of orders per site. No manual copy-paste, no fragile references. Your challenge this week. Take one existing report and replace a manual, copy-pasted block of numbers with a single formula that combines a lookup function, VLOOKUP, XLOOKUP, or index match, and a logic function, if, ifs, or if error. Don't build a new file. Refactor something you already use. Then stress test it by changing the source data. If the results update cleanly without extra edits, you've turned a static report into a small, reliable system. A merchandising team I worked with had a sprawling workbook for promo planning, dozens of tabs, constants typed directly into cells, and a weekly ritual of find and replace gone wrong. Their turning point wasn't a new tool. It was one sheet where they rewired everything through 3 formulas: a lookup to pull the current discount rules, an if to decide which rule applied by channel, and a filter to spill only active promos to the store teams. Overnight, the same file shifted from brittle to trustworthy. Change a date or region once, watch every dependent view update without chasing links. You can do a lighter version of that in an operations context. Say you track shipments. Instead of manually flagging late, due today, on time, build a tiny logic layer that reads planned versus actual dates and outputs a status code. Then let your lookup family translate that code into the right SLA, penalty, or escalation contact. One column encodes the decision, another fetches the consequence. It's closer to writing policy than filling out a log, and it's what makes later steps, Power Query, dashboards, automation, feel obvious rather than overwhelming. Over the next few years, those simple formulas start acting more like reusable building blocks than one-off tricks. As Lambda and custom functions spread, you'll be able to wrap whole decision flows, eligibility rules, routing choices, commission logic, into named functions that anyone on your team can call. It's like turning a favorite recipe into a house standard. Instead of everyone guessing the ingredients, they just say, "Make the Tuesday pasta," and trust the process stays consistent. Treat this as practice for larger systems you haven't built yet. The same habits, separating rules from data, naming ranges clearly, chaining logic with lookups, scale when you move into Power Query, models, or BI. Like tuning a guitar before a performance, getting these small structures right now makes every future analysis cleaner, faster, and more in tune. Start with this tiny habit. When you finish entering any list of data in Excel, like names, products, or dates, type equals VLOOKUP in the first empty cell below it, and just fill in the first argument, the thing you want to look up, before you stop. Don't worry about finishing the whole formula, just start it. Tomorrow, when you see that half-started VLOOKUP, add only the table range. The next day, add just the column number, and later the false for exact match. Bit by bit, you'll wire VLOOKUP into your muscle memory without it ever feeling heavy. This was Owl Up, your daily step forward. To keep learning with structured courses and more insights, go to owlup.co. Until tomorrow!